The corridor outside the oak room at Windsor Castle is empty at 6:40 in the morning, and that is the first thing that feels wrong. A footman stands where he always stands. The light falls where it always falls. But the weekend arrivals list, the one printed and clipped to the board near the household office, is shorter than it was last week. One name is gone. No line drawn through it, no note. The name is simply no longer there, as if it had never been expected at all. A senior aide, the kind who has worked these halls long enough to read silence like a second language, pauses at the board. According to reports circulating in the British press, this is how it begins inside Windsor. Not with a shout, not with a door slammed shut. It begins with a list and a small, deliberate absence that only the people who matter are meant to notice. The aide reads the name that should be there, then reads the empty space where it used to sit, then walks on saying nothing, because at Windsor saying nothing is itself a kind of message. King Charles III is somewhere in the castle this morning, and the people closest to him will tell you his routines have not changed. He takes his tea. He reads his papers. He moves through the day with the same measured calm he has shown for decades. But royal biographers have long debated whether the most important decisions a monarch makes are the ones he announces, or the ones he quietly allows to happen. And this one, whatever it is, has not been announced. It has only been allowed. Queen Camilla feels it before anyone explains it to her. That is what the rumor version insists. A weekend that used to include certain family faces now feels arranged a little differently. A seating plan that once made room now makes none. From a public relations standpoint, this move suggests something the palace would never say out loud. That proximity to the crown is not a right passed down through blood or marriage. It is granted. And what is granted can quietly, gently be taken back. Hi, viewers. Before we go deeper into Windsor's quietest power shift in years, I want to ask you something personal, and I genuinely want your answer in the comments. If you had to choose between protecting your family and protecting your duty, which one would you choose first? Type your honest answer below, because this entire story lives inside that exact impossible choice. And if you believe the most powerful decisions are the ones nobody ever announces, hit that subscribe button and stay with me, because what comes next will change how you see this family forever. Prince William, the Prince of Wales, is not in the room when any of this is noticed. He does not need to be. People who watch the monarchy closely say the future king has a habit of shaping the present without ever raising his voice. A consultation here, a quiet question there, a schedule that begins to tighten the same week his name starts appearing more often in the household conversations. He is not confronting anyone. He is simply, patiently, observing which patterns hold and which ones have started to bend. And then there is Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, the one member of this family who has spent her entire life defending a single hard line, that family affection and royal duty are not the same thing and must never be confused. She has said nothing about the missing name. She has objected to nothing. But the people who understand how Windsor truly works know that when Anne does not object, the institution reads her silence as approval, and her silence this week has been complete. So the question hangs in the cold morning air of the castle, unanswered and growing heavier by the hour. Someone who used to be expected is no longer expected. Someone who once stood close enough to touch the coronation robes has been quietly moved to the outer edge of the family's orbit. No one has said why, no one has said when it was decided, and no one inside those walls is willing to be the first to say the name out loud. But the name matters. The name is the whole story. And in the next chapter, you are going to learn exactly whose absence just shifted the balance of power inside the House of Windsor. The coronation, May 2023, Westminster Abbey. Two young pages in tailored coats stand near the most photographed garments in the world, the heavy robes of a newly crowned king. They are not random children. They are Queen Camilla's grandsons, Gus and Louis Lopes, the twin sons of her daughter Laura Lopes, and Freddie Parker Bowles, the son of her son Tom Parker Bowles. On that day, the whole world saw them. On that day, their presence said something the palace wanted said, "This blended family belongs here now. This is acceptance, written in silk and ceremony for 2 billion people to witness." That image is exactly why the present feels so loud in its quietness.
I remember myself endless activity, and if you can do it to help others in the process.
Because according to reports circulating in royal commentary circles, the distance between that coronation morning and this Windsor weekend is the entire story. Back then, the message was visibility. Welcome them in. Show the world a modern monarchy that does not hide its stepfamily in the shadows. Now the message has changed. Not removal, not banishment, something colder and more precise than either of those words. A redefining of proximity. A quiet decision about who gets to stand inside the routines of Windsor and who is gently moved to the place where guests stand instead of family. Royal households do not run on feelings. That is the part the public almost never understands. The people who manage Windsor think in terms of access logic, not emotion. Who is on the list? Who has clearance? Who is expected at which event? And who must now be specifically invited rather than simply assume? A grandchild of the Queen Consort, lovely as that child may be, is still a private citizen. He holds no title. He carries no constitutional role. And in the cold arithmetic of an institution built to outlive every single person currently inside it, that distinction is not cruel. It is structural. But the public does not see structure. The public sees a child who stood beside a king and now seems to stand a step further back. And that gap, that small visible gap, is where the trouble starts to live. From a public relations standpoint, this move creates a contradiction the palace cannot easily fix. On the surface, the monarchy spent years building an image of warmth and inclusion. Charles and Camilla, the couple who survived decades of scandal and emerged respectable, surrounded by a family that finally looked whole. That was the public image. That was the carefully managed picture. Underneath it, though, runs a different logic entirely. One that has nothing to do with warmth and everything to do with what the institution can afford to be seen tolerating. Inherited access. Blended privilege. The slow blurring of the line between people who serve the crown and people who simply happen to be related to it. Royal biographers have long debated whether Camilla's family was ever meant to be permanent fixtures inside the working machinery of the monarchy, or whether their visibility was always a moment, not a promise. The coronation was a moment, a spectacular, deliberate, once-in-a-lifetime moment. But moments end, and when they end, the question becomes brutally simple. Were these family members brought close because they belong inside the institution, or because, for one shining ceremonial day, it served the institution to show them off? The answer to that question is now being written, not in any official statement, but in seating plans and weekend lists and the small adjustments that household staff make without ever explaining why. There is a line, attributed to no one and circulating like smoke through the commentary, that captures the whole shift in a single breath. Windsor is not reducing family. It is redefining proximity. Read it once and it sounds gentle. Read it twice and you understand that it is one of the coldest sentences the modern monarchy has ever produced. Because proximity, inside those walls, is power. And someone has just been moved. The real question, the one that pulls this story into far more dangerous territory, is not who got moved. It is who made the decision. And in the next chapter, you will see the one man caught between the woman he loves and the crown he serves, and you will understand why he may not have had a choice at all. The decision, if there was a decision, sits with one person. It always does. King Charles III can delegate almost everything in his life. The schedules, the correspondence, the endless ceremonial duties, but he cannot delegate this. The question of who belongs near the heart of his family is his alone to answer. And the people who watch him closely say he has been unusually quiet lately, even by his own reserved standards. This is the trap of the crown that no fairy tale ever explains. He is a husband. He is also a sovereign, and those two men do not always want the same thing. As a husband, Charles owes Camilla everything. Royal biographers have long debated the depth of their bond, but almost none dispute its strength. She stood beside him through decades of public scorn, through years when the British press treated her as the villain of the most famous marriage of the 20th century. He fought to make her his queen. He spent his entire adult life insisting that she belonged at his side. So the idea that he would now allow her own family to be quietly edged toward the margins seems, on the surface, almost impossible to believe. But the sovereign is a different man with different obligations, and the sovereign answers to something far larger than love. Here is the part most people never think about. The monarchy is not free. It is funded through the sovereign grant, a payment set by law and tied directly to the profits of the crown estate, that vast portfolio of land and property that legally belongs to the reigning monarch but whose profits flow to the treasury. For the 2024 to 2025 financial year, that grant reached approximately £86 million. Every penny of it is public money. Every penny of it can be questioned by Parliament, examined by auditors, and dragged into the daylight by any journalist who cares to ask. And in recent years, the grant has been set to rise dramatically,
Which rely on providing a constructive alternative to the violence which goes on. Teenage leaders, constructive, adventurous.
driven by an enormous new source of revenue that the palace did not expect and cannot fully control. That last detail matters more than it appears, and it is the thread that this entire story will eventually pull. Hold on to it, because here is the pressure that sits on Charles like a weight he can never set down. When the money is public, the family becomes public too. Every face at every event becomes a question someone might ask: why is that person here? What role do they serve? Who is paying for the access they appear to enjoy? From a public relations standpoint, a king who allows the line between private family and public institution to blur is a king handing his critics a loaded weapon. And Charles, who has watched the monarchy survive scandal after scandal, knows exactly how those weapons get used. So the rumor version frames his silence not as coldness, but as calculation. He is not punishing anyone. He is doing the math. The same math every monarch before him has done. What can the institution defend, and what can it not? Who can stand inside the working family without raising a single dangerous question, and who, however beloved, however innocent, becomes a liability the moment a camera or an auditor looks too closely? And while Charles performs this impossible arithmetic, another presence grows quietly stronger in the background. Prince William, the Prince of Wales, has been increasing his involvement in the affairs of the household, and the people who notice such things say his influence is no longer the influence of an heir waiting his turn. It is the influence of a man already shaping the institution he will one day fully command. He does not argue with his father. He does not need to. He simply asks the questions that make certain answers inevitable. There is a phrase said to be circulating among those close to these conversations, and it lands like a quiet warning. Not everything familiar remains operational. 6 words, no names, no accusations. But everyone who hears it understands precisely what it means. Familiarity is not the same as function. Affection is not the same as access. And inside Windsor, the things that stop being useful do not get expelled. They simply stop being expected. So Charles sits between his two selves, the husband and the king, and somewhere in that silence, a choice is being made. But he is not making it alone anymore. And in the next chapter, you will meet the man whose quiet pressure may be the real force behind every closed door. The future king who never has to raise his voice to change the shape of the family. Nobody sees Prince William give an order. That is the entire point. The Prince of Wales does not operate through commands or confrontations. He operates through something far harder to trace and far more difficult to resist. He asks, he consults, he requests a quiet review of how things are done. And then, weeks later, the household notices that things are simply done differently, and no one can point to the exact moment the change was made. The people who study the monarchy closely have started to call this his structural influence, and the description fits. William does not push against the institution. He reshapes it from the inside, the way water reshapes stone, without ever appearing to apply force. His reasons are not personal, and that is what makes them so powerful. William is not thinking about Camilla's grandsons as individuals. He is thinking about 3 other children entirely: Prince George, Princess Charlotte, Prince Louis. The future of the entire House of Windsor rests on those 3 young shoulders, and William has made it the quiet mission of his life to hand them a monarchy that can actually survive the century they will inherit. Every decision he influences runs through that single filter. Does this protect the future of my children, or does it put it at risk? And here is where the cold logic becomes impossible to argue with. A monarchy crowded with extended family members who hold no official role, who carry no title, who serve no constitutional purpose, is a monarchy that looks bloated and outdated to the very public that pays for it. American audiences, in particular, who watch the British royals with enormous interest,
Your Majesty, ladies and gentlemen,
tend to ask the sharpest questions of all. Why so many people? Why so much access? Who are all these relatives standing near the crown? And what exactly do they do to earn the privilege of being there? William has clearly absorbed those questions, and the people around him say he intends to answer them before they are ever fully asked. So the slimming begins, quietly, the way everything important at Windsor begins. Not with announcements, not with public statements about reducing the working family, just with a gradual tightening of who appears inside the routines, who is expected at the private gatherings, who belongs to the inner machinery of the institution, and who belongs, warmly but firmly, to the category of relatives who are loved but not deployed. From a public relations standpoint, every name William helps move toward that outer edge is one less question the monarchy will have to answer in the difficult decades ahead. And standing beside him through all of it is Catherine, Princess of Wales, whose role in this story is quieter still but no less important. Catherine has spent years building something the monarchy desperately needs and cannot manufacture on command: trust, moral steadiness. The image of a woman the public genuinely believes in. She does not involve herself in the cold arithmetic of access logic. She does not need to. Her very presence stabilizes the picture, reminding the public that the future of this family is in steady, dignified hands. While William adjusts the structure, Catherine holds the image. Together they form something the institution has not had in a long time: a clear, credible vision of what comes next. There is a detail, small and easy to miss, that the people watching closely have noted with quiet interest. The schedules began tightening the same week William's consultations increased. Read it slowly. The two things happened together. The future king asked more questions, sat in more conversations, made his presence felt more often in the household's planning, and almost immediately the lists grew shorter and the access grew narrower. Correlation is not proof. The palace would never confirm a connection. But the timing speaks in a language that requires no confirmation. What makes William so formidable in this story is precisely that he never appears to be the cause of anything. He leaves no fingerprints. He raises no voice. He simply creates the conditions in which certain outcomes become unavoidable, and then steps back and lets the institution do what institutions do. Charles may sit on the throne. Charles may hold the final word, but the future is already leaning toward the man who will inherit it, and the future has opinions about who belongs inside the door. And yet, for all of William's quiet influence, not even the future king can make a decision like this one feel legitimate on his own. He needs something more. He needs the approval of the one person in this family whose judgment the institution treats as the closest thing it has to a conscience. And in the next chapter you will discover why Princess Anne's complete and total silence may be the loudest verdict of all. Princess Anne says nothing, and that nothing changes everything. The Princess Royal is not in the rooms where the seating plans are debated. She does not weigh in on the weekend lists. She does not offer opinions on who should stand where during which family gathering. But the people who understand how this institution truly functions will tell you that Anne does not need to be in those rooms. Her influence does not work that way. It never has. She is the standard against which the others quietly measure themselves, and her judgment hangs over every decision whether she speaks it aloud or not. She has earned that position through the hardest currency the monarchy recognizes: work. Year after year, Anne has logged more official engagements than almost any other member of the family, often more than 400 a year, more than royals half her age. She does not chase headlines. She does not court the cameras. She does the duty, day after day, and she has built across decades an unshakable reputation as the member of this family who understands the difference between affection and obligation better than anyone alive. And that distinction is the entire foundation of who she is. Family affection is real, and Anne does not deny it. But royal duty is something else entirely, something that does not bend to feelings, does not make exceptions for love, does not soften because someone is a beloved grandchild or a cherished in-law. The working royal structure exists to serve the crown, not the family, and the people who hold no role within that structure, however close they may be by blood or marriage, exist in a different category that Anne has spent her life refusing to blur. So when the question of Camilla's family proximity moves quietly through the household, everyone waits in a way to see how Anne will respond. Not because she holds a vote, because her response, whatever it is, will tell the institution whether the decision sits comfortably within its own rules. And Anne does not object. That is the whole of it. She does not stand up for a different arrangement. She does not argue that the grandchildren should remain inside the inner routines. She does not push back against the tightening of the lists. She simply lets it happen. And in the language of Windsor, letting something happen is its own form of consent. Royal biographers have long debated whether Anne's silences are accidental or deliberate, and almost all of them land on the same conclusion. With Anne, nothing is accidental. Her silence is a choice, and the institution knows how to read it. There's a line moving through the commentary that captures it with chilling precision. When Anne does not object, the institution interprets silence as consent. That is not a casual observation. That is a description of how power actually moves inside a family that has ruled for 1,000 years. The loud voices rarely decide anything. The quiet ones, the disciplined ones, the ones who have spent their lives defending the line between duty and affection, hold a kind of authority that no title fully explains. And here is what makes Anne's role in this story so heavy. Her approval, if you can even call silence approval, gives the whole quiet shift a legitimacy that William's influence and Charles's calculation could never provide on their own. The future king can shape the structure, the sovereign can do the arithmetic. But it is Anne, the institutional conscience, who signals that none of it violates the deeper rules the monarchy lives by. Her stillness is the final stamp. Her absence of disagreement is the closing of the door. From a public relations standpoint, this is precisely why the decision can hold. It does not look like a king punishing his wife's family. It does not look like an heir clearing the field for his own children. It looks, to anyone who understands the machinery, like the institution simply applying its own ancient logic, with the quiet blessing of the one person whose judgment that institution trusts most. No anger, no drama, only discipline, and the silence of a woman who has never confused what she loves with what she serves. But silence, however powerful, cannot stay private forever. Somewhere beyond the walls of Windsor, the small absences and shortened lists are starting to be noticed by people who are paid to notice. The story is leaving the castle, and in the next chapter, you will watch the moment a quiet household decision becomes a public rumor and learn how a single missing name turns into a story that no palace denial can fully contain. A royal correspondent in London receives a message at 9:15 on a weekday morning, and the message contains only one line. A name that should have been on a Windsor weekend list was not on it. That is all. No scandal, no quote, no source willing to go on the record. But for a journalist who has spent years learning to read the spaces between official statements, one missing name is not nothing. One missing name is the beginning of a story. And this is the moment the quiet decision inside the castle stops being private. According to reports circulating in the British press, the rumor did not arrive fully formed. It assembled itself, piece by piece, the way these stories always do. A household detail mentioned to the wrong person. An observation passed between people who watch the family for a living. A pattern that, once noticed, could not be unnoticed. And then the reframing began, because the first version of any royal rumor is almost never the version that survives. The early whisper said expulsion. King Charles throws out Camilla's grandson. It was dramatic, simple, and built to travel. But the people who actually understand Windsor pushed back almost immediately, because expulsion was never the right word. Nobody was thrown out. Nobody was banned. What happened, if anything happened at all, was quieter and far more precise. Access recalibration. A shift in who is expected, not a punishment of who is unwelcome. And royal biographers have long debated whether the public can ever truly tell the difference between those two things, because emotionally, to the audience watching from outside, they feel identical. That gap between what the institution did and what the public believes it did is where the media machine goes to work. Here is how the cycle turns, and it turns the same way every time. A small fact enters the ecosystem. A headline sharpens it into something stark. Social media strips away the careful framing and keeps only the shock. Within hours, a measured story about household structure becomes an emotional story about a king rejecting a child, and the correction never travels as fast as the accusation. From a public relations standpoint, the palace faces a problem it cannot solve with a denial, because denying a rumor only proves the rumor is large enough to require a denial. The story also picks up something heavier as it moves, a weight that has nothing to do with Camilla's grandsons and everything to do with public memory. Because the moment the narrative becomes a king who decides which family members belong inside the walls, an older wound reopens in the public imagination. Diana, Princess of Wales, the woman the public still remembers as the one the institution treated as expendable. While no serious commentator draws a direct line between these situations, the emotional filter is impossible to remove. The public has seen this family decide who belongs before. The public remembers how that story ended, so the rumor stops being about a weekend list. It becomes a test of everything people already believe about the monarchy. Is it warm or is it cold? Does it protect its own or discard them when they become inconvenient? While the palace officially denies any drama, experts point out that the institution cannot control which story the public chooses to believe, and the public almost always chooses the story that confirms what it already feels. There is a line attributed to an unnamed royal commentator that cuts straight to the center of it.
The difference it's made, and helping to build self-confidence, self-esteem, but also highly successful businesses, many of which they've sold on for millions. And then, of course, the greatest thing, which I always hoped but never quite believed would happen, having invested many of the people who've been successful through the trust.
This was never about removal, it was about redefining entry. Read it once, and it sounds clinical. Read it twice, and you understand it is the most honest sentence in the entire affair, because it describes exactly what the institution does and exactly why the public will never accept that explanation. Removal is an event. Redefining entry is a system. And systems are much harder to forgive, because you cannot point to the moment they decided you no longer mattered. But here is what nobody chasing the rumor has noticed yet. While the press fights over a missing name, a far larger pressure is building somewhere else entirely, somewhere with numbers attached, somewhere the palace genuinely cannot control. And in the next chapter you will follow the money, and you will see why a sudden flood of offshore revenue may be the real reason Windsor suddenly cares so much about who stands near the crown. The number is so large it stops people mid-sentence. $26 billion. That is the figure tied to a single offshore deal connected to the Crown Estate, and it lands in the middle of this royal story like a stone dropped into still water, sending ripples nobody at Windsor fully planned for. To understand why a missing name and a giant pile of money belong in the same story, you have to understand where the monarchy's wealth actually comes from, and the answer takes us out to sea. The Crown Estate is the vast collection of land and property legally tied to the reigning monarch, though its profits flow to the public treasury, which then funds the monarchy through the sovereign grant. For decades, the Crown Estate was a story about farmland, London real estate, and high streets. But in recent years, it became something else entirely, because the Crown Estate owns the rights to the seabed around England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. And the seabed, it turns out, is where the future of energy lives, offshore wind. According to reports widely covered in the British press, the Crown Estate signed agreements leasing portions of that seabed to companies racing to build enormous offshore wind farms, and those agreements generated option fees reaching into the billions of pounds. The Crown Estate's net revenue profit surged to roughly £1.1 billion in a single recent year, driven overwhelmingly by these offshore wind deals. And because the sovereign grant is calculated as a percentage of Crown Estate profits, that surge meant the funding of the monarchy was suddenly set to climb to numbers that made even royal supporters uneasy. This is the offshore twist that changes how the entire story should be read, because here is the uncomfortable truth that follows the money. The instant the monarchy's funding became tied to a high-profile, multi-billion-dollar revenue stream, every single thing the family did came under a brighter and harsher light. From a public relations standpoint, you cannot accept a dramatic rise in public-linked funding and simultaneously look relaxed about who wanders through the corridors of Windsor enjoying inherited access. The two cannot coexist. The bigger the money, the smaller the family's margin for anything that looks like privilege without purpose. Royal biographers have long debated whether the modern monarchy survives on tradition or on optics, and the offshore money settles the debate in favor of optics. When the funding was quiet, the family could afford to be generous with access. When the funding becomes a headline, generosity becomes a liability. Every relative near the crown becomes a question a journalist might ask: why is this person here? What do they do? Who, exactly, is the public paying for? The sovereign grant became a spotlight, and spotlights do not flatter clutter. So the timing stops looking like coincidence. The same era that brought the monarchy its largest funding surge in modern history is the same era in which the institution suddenly grows careful about who belongs inside its private routines. The connection is never stated in any palace document. It does not have to be. The logic moves on its own. More money means more scrutiny. More scrutiny means tighter access. Tighter access means somebody, somewhere, quietly drops off a weekend list, and a child who once stood near the coronation robes becomes a question the institution would rather not invite. There is a strategic observation circulating among those who study these dynamics, and it captures the whole machine in a single breath. When funding becomes transparent, privacy becomes harder to defend. That is the offshore lesson written plainly. The Monarchy traded a measure of its old privacy for a fortune from the sea, and the bill for that trade is paid in exactly this currency, in seating plans and shortened lists, and the cold arithmetic of who can survive being looked at. But money explains the pressure. It does not explain the human cost. Because somewhere inside Windsor stands a woman who fought her entire life to belong, and who now must watch her own family quietly redefined by forces that have nothing to do with love. And in the next chapter, you will stand beside Queen Camilla, and you will understand what it costs to be powerful and powerless at the very same time. Queen Camilla keeps her composure in public every time, without exception, and that composure is exactly what makes the private picture so striking. The woman who endured decades as the most criticized figure in Britain does not flinch in front of cameras. She has trained herself not to. But composure in public says nothing about what a person carries in private, and the rumor version of this story insists that what Camilla carries now is a specific kind of ache, the ache of watching her own family quietly moved while she is required to say nothing at all. This is the cruelty hidden inside her position. She is queen, and she is helpless. As queen consort, Camilla holds one of the most visible roles in the world, yet that role comes with a hard constitutional truth she cannot argue against. The institution does not exist to serve her family. It exists to serve the crown. Royal biographers have long debated how much real power a consort actually holds, and the consensus is uncomfortable. Influence, yes. Affection, perhaps. But authority over the institution's own logic, almost none. When Windsor decides to redefine proximity, the queen consort does not get a veto. She gets a front-row seat to a decision she cannot reverse. And the people at the center of that decision are not abstractions to her. They are her children's children. Tom Parker Bowles' son, Laura Lopes's twins, the grandchildren who stood inside the most important day of her life, who represented, in that coronation moment, the public proof that her blended family had finally been accepted. To watch their visibility quietly narrow is to watch a promise grow smaller, and from a public relations standpoint, no amount of royal training fully prepares a grandmother for that. The contradiction she lives inside is brutal in its simplicity. Family integration pulls her one way. Constitutional distance pulls her the other. As a grandmother, she wants her family close, wants them seen, wants the acceptance to be permanent. As queen, she is bound to an institution that treats permanence as a privilege it can withdraw. She cannot be fully a grandmother without weakening the crown. She cannot be fully a queen without distancing the family. There is no version of this where she does not lose something. And here is where the story turns its attention to her husband, because King Charles III feels her pain in a way no one else can. His protective instinct toward Camilla is one of the most documented features of his entire life. He spent decades fighting for her. So the rumor version frames his silence not as indifference but as agony. The agony of a man who must choose, again, between the woman he loves and the institution he serves. He cannot protect her family and protect the crown at the same time. Every monarch eventually faces a moment where love and duty refuse to share the same answer, and this, quietly, is his. Then there is William, and his presence in Camilla's situation is the coldest element of all, precisely because it is so neutral. The Prince of Wales does not oppose Camilla. He does not attack her family. He simply remains neutral, and neutrality from the future king is its own kind of pressure. Because if William were to defend the grandchildren's place inside the inner routines, that defense would carry enormous weight. His silence removes that protection. He is not pushing Camilla's family out. He is simply declining to hold the door, and in an institution this finely balanced, declining to help is nearly the same as helping it happen. There is a symbolic observation moving through the commentary that captures Camilla's entire predicament in one line. Even inside Windsor, presence is no longer guaranteed by closeness. Sit with that. The Queen herself is close to the crown by any measure. Yet her family's presence is no longer guaranteed by that closeness, because the institution has begun to value function over affection, and affection is the only currency Camilla truly holds. So she stands there, powerful and powerless, watching a slow recalibration she cannot stop. But recalibration is not a single dramatic act. It is a process, and processes reach a point of no return. And in the next chapter, you will witness the exact moment this quiet shift becomes permanent, the moment the system stops adjusting and simply settles into a new shape that no one can undo. There is no meeting where it happens, no document signed, no announcement drafted and approved. The moment the system recalibrates is not a moment anyone can point to, and that is precisely what makes it so final. One week the household plans around certain expectations. The next week it plans around different ones. And by the time anyone notices the shift is complete, it is already too late to reverse, because there was never a single decision to argue against in the first place. This is how institutions that have survived 1,000 years actually change, not loudly, quietly, and all at once. The recalibration works by separating two categories that most people assume are the same thing: being in orbit and being in access. Royal biographers have long debated this distinction, but it sits at the heart of everything. To be in orbit means to be near the family, connected by blood or marriage, present in the photographs, real in the public imagination. To be in access means something far more specific. It means being expected, being on the list automatically, belonging to the working machinery of the institution rather than the warm circle around it. And the quiet truth of this entire story is that a person can remain fully in orbit while quietly losing all their access. That is what makes it nearly impossible to protest. Nobody was removed from the family. The grandchildren are still grandchildren. The relationships still exist. The love still exists. Only the access changed, and access is invisible, which means its loss is almost impossible to point to. From a public relations standpoint, this is the most defensible move an institution can make, because there is no dramatic act to condemn. There is only a list that grew shorter, and lists do not give interviews. The decisive factor, the thing that turned a possible shift into a permanent one, was alignment. Specifically, Princess Anne's alignment with structure. As long as the institution's conscience stood quietly beside the new arrangement held, Anne did not need to advocate for it. Her stillness was enough, because the Princess Royal has spent her entire life as the living proof that duty outranks affection, and when she does not object to a structure, the structure becomes the standard. While the press chased the question of who decided, the truer answer was that no one decided alone. The pieces simply aligned until the outcome became inevitable. And Charles, through all of it, is not framed as a villain in the rumor version. He is framed as a manager of an impossible inheritance. The king did not punish anyone. He adapted. He read the pressure of the offshore funding, the scrutiny of the sovereign grant, the questions American and British audiences alike were learning to ask, and he allowed the institution to do what it has always done when the light grows too bright. He let it contract toward what it can defend. Royal biographers have long debated whether adaptive monarchy is strength or cowardice, but the institution itself has no doubt. Adaptation is survival, and survival is the only mandate that has ever truly mattered. So the system settles into its new shape. The working family grows a little tighter. The orbit grows a little wider and a little more distant from the axis. And the people who are quietly moved discover that there was never a door slammed in their faces, because the door simply stopped opening for them, gradually, until its closing felt less like an event and more like a fact of nature. There is a final internal perception, attributed to those who watch these dynamics most closely, and it may be the most haunting line in the entire story. No one was removed. The system simply stopped expecting them. There is no cruelty you can name in that sentence, and that is exactly what makes it so cold. Cruelty you can fight. Indifference, structural and quiet and absolute, leaves nothing to push against. You cannot appeal a system that has simply stopped expecting you. You can only notice, eventually, that you are no longer where you used to be. The recalibration is complete. The new shape has set. But a story like this never truly ends with a resolution, because nothing was ever officially confirmed, and nothing was ever officially denied. And in the final chapter, you will see what remains when the dust settles, the quiet, unannounced transformation that tells you everything about how power really works inside the House of Windsor. Nothing is confirmed. That is the first thing to understand about how this ends. There is no statement from the palace admitting that anyone's access was reduced. There is no scandal resolved, no villain unmasked, no dramatic press conference where the truth finally comes out. The story does not end with an answer. It ends with a silence, and the silence is the answer. There was no expulsion. The rumor that started everything, the dramatic version about a king throwing out a grandson, was never the real story. And the real story is far quieter and far more permanent than expulsion could ever be. Nobody was banished. Nobody was disowned. The grandchildren of Queen Camilla remain exactly what they always were, Private citizens with no titles and no constitutional roles, loved within the family and held at a careful distance by the institution. What changed was not their place in the family. What changed was their place in the machine. And the monarchy in the end simply kept doing what it has always done. It evolved. While the palace officially denies any drama, experts point out that the institution's true power has never lived in its announcements. It lives in its adjustments, in the quiet recalibrations that reshape the family without anyone ever being able to name the moment it happened. William's future-oriented control grows clearer with each passing season. The next monarchy, already taking shape inside the current one, leaner and more careful, and built to survive a century that will question everything. So this is what remains when the rumors fade and the headlines move on. A family still standing, a queen still composed, a future king still quietly shaping the structure his children will inherit, and a handful of people who once stood near the coronation robes, still part of the family, still loved, but no longer automatically expected in the rooms where the institution does its work. The visibility changed, the symbolism changed, and in a family where symbolism is power, that quiet change matters more than any announcement ever could. In the monarchy, the most powerful decisions are the ones that never become announcements. If this story moved something in you, if it made you see the hidden machinery behind the crown a little more clearly, then do this before you go. Subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications, because the next story we tell will pull back the curtain on another corner of this world that almost no one talks about, and you do not want to miss the moment it drops. Share your thoughts in the comments below, because your perspective genuinely inspires the people reading alongside you. And the best conversations on this channel are the ones you build together. Tell me what you believe really happened inside those walls. Tell me whether the institution was right to protect itself, or whether something quietly human was lost along the way. And then come back for the next story, because the door to Windsor is never fully closed, and there is always one more secret waiting just on the other side of it.